Hey there, everybody. Pete Pardo here from Sea of Tranquility. Welcome to day 5 of the 30 most important albums in the history of hard rock and heavy metal. Those albums that really greatly influenced what we now know as heavy music, right? So we're going back in time. We might come up fairly close-ish to the present day, but for the most part, we're going to be looking at stuff from the 60s, 70s, 80s, maybe a little bit from the 90s. Might dip a little bit into the 2000s, but the 30, to me anyway, these are what I feel are the most important albums in the history of heavy rock, right? Hard rock and heavy metal. So today for day 5, we're still on 1968, right? We'll be in 1969 tomorrow, but today, 1968, released June 14th of that year, produced by Jim Hilton for the Atco label. We're talking about the second album from Iron Butterfly, In-A-Gadda-Da-Vida, or In the Garden of Eden, right? In the Garden of Eden, honey. In-A-Gadda-Da-Vida, right? Of course, everybody knows the title track, which is, 17 minutes long. Took up all of side 2 with its heavy psychedelic guitar lick. I mean, this album is kind of like, it's acid rock, it's psychedelic, but more importantly, man, that snarling guitar and organ riff, that's, how many metal bands remade In-A-Gadda-Da-Vida over the years, right? How many bands kind of replicated and copied that whole heavy acid drenched, riff and changed it around, did something similar over. I mean, you can't deny Iron Butterfly. The ironic thing is, though, that's probably the heaviest song, or one of the heaviest songs they ever did. If you look at their entire catalog, they weren't really a overly heavy band, but they certainly had their moments. What's really cool about this album, and we're looking at, we're going to talk about the guys in the band. So we got Eric Brand on guitar and vocals. You got Ron Bushy on drums, who we lost recently. Lee Dorman on bass, guitar, backing vocals, and of course the great Doug Ingle on the Vox Continental organ and lead vocals. Very, very distinctive vocal style for Doug Ingle. So we've got, what's really interesting about this album is that there are parts of it where the arrangements are a little kind of flower powery, but then you have this very fuzz driven guitar throughout the whole album. Even on some of the songs aren't really all that rockin' or heavy, you got that guitar that's sitting there that's kind of driving things a little bit, like Most Anything You Want. Fantastic song, great vocal, but man, those guitar licks, yeah. I mean, this is 1968, right? So this is the height of psychedelia, U.S. psychedelic rock, but just, man, it just doesn't get much better than this. Flowers and Beads, okay? My Mirage, Termination. My Mirage is excellent too. Termination and Are You Happy? Are You Happy is great because it's got a great vocal hook, but it's just, you listen to these songs, and yes, it's kind of dated and from its time, but man, you can see so many bands that kind of took what these guys were doing, and even the Vanilla Fudge to an extent. I almost considered giving them a separate episode, but again, I think that the Iron Butterfly were a little bit more important to hard rock and metal going forward. The Fudge definitely, because the Fudge influenced like Deep Purple, for instance, and yes, so like you can see like bands that would eventually become known as hard rock and progressive rock certainly took a lot from Vanilla Fudge and Iron Butterfly. But then you got the gargantuan In-A-Gadda-Da-Vida, 17 minutes length. It's creepy, it's menacing. Those vocals, the scary vocals, right? That guitar riff. And the organ right there next to it, those creepy organ passages, and then, the drum solo, right? So it's just, how many bands in their wake would do similar things like this? That's why, and you could arguably say that this album is really more notable in its influence on the styles we're talking about for the title track, but there's enough throughout this album where the guitars really got some heft to it. They were utilizing fuzz and distortion, kind of like, like Cream was dipping into it. Certainly Hendrix, and certainly Blue Cheer, who we talked about yesterday. So I think that's what really kind of started a lot of this. And even, Dave Davies with the Kinks, all of a sudden you had these guitar players that were utilizing all this gain, right? Distortion and fuzz, using pedals and things like that to make the music heavier, right? The guitar solos have more impact. And before you know it, what we knew as psychedelia was turning into something drastically different. And we went from, these bands that were embracing the psychedelic and the acid rock, and then all of a sudden you have some, especially British bands, using the blues and turning that into something different. That's going to be happening in the days to come. We just talked about Jeff Beck on the Truth album. We've got bands coming up like, you know who they are, Deep Purple and Led Zeppelin and Black Sabbath, right? We've got The Who coming up. We've got, all these other bands that all of a sudden are starting to get louder, raunchier, right? Starting to really add some heft and heaviness into their music. So, and a lot of these bands we're talking early on laid the groundwork for all that. So stay tuned for more of these coming up each and every day throughout the month of November. 30 days, 30 albums. So we're at day 5. In-A-Gadda-Da-Vida, honey. Iron Butterfly is your pick for today. Visit us on the web at www.seatranquility.org. We're on Facebook, we're on Twitter. Of course, we're here on YouTube all the damn time. Coming up, we got Martin Popoff back with me in the Funhouse coming up momentarily. And then we've got on Sunday, we have, of course, album homework assignment with Chris Canzaneri and Chuck Alvarez. So stay tuned for that and a whole lot more. And of course, these every single day this month. So thanks for watching. Make sure you subscribe if you haven't already. Click on that notification bell. We got the link also to our Ko-Fi page if you want to make a channel donation. We got the link to our merch page if you want to get yourself a Sea of Tranquility shirt or hoodie or a cap or hat or sticker or coffee mug, whatever. We got all sorts of cool stuff there. So the link to that is below as well. And the link to seatranquility.org, our webzine, 20 years running on the internet. That's below as well. So thanks for watching, everybody. See you later on. Bye-bye.